Well, I hope this is not the weekend that you're planning a Vegas trip, because as you can see, it's kind of rainy and cloudy. It's supposed to be that way for a while. Unusual for us here in the desert. Hey, I got to ask today about advice, and what advice should you take, and how should you be about giving advice. So I wanted to talk for just a minute about advice. I remember many years ago that my wife and I were having dinner. This is in the early part of my career, and we were just thrilled because we got a chance to have dinner with Dr. Dennis Waitley. Dennis is a wonderful guy, and at that time he had the hottest audio recording, audio training, audio book on the market called The Psychology of Winning. Matter of fact, until Tony Robbins came along, that was the most purchased audio program of all time. So Dennis, here with this young guy, under 30, beginning his speaking career, Dennis asked me the question. He said, "So Scott, what are you working on now?" Well, I had a project that I was working on that I had not told anyone about. It was called You Incorporated, and it was talking about how every person should view themselves as a company, that you should have your R&D department, you should have your finance department, you should have your sales department, and to view yourself as a company. Well, Dennis liked that. And you got to remember, this is early 80s. Dennis really liked that idea. He encouraged me to proceed with it and to think about it, and I got excited about it. And then a little bit later, a day or two later, I ran into one of my mentors and I told him about the project. And his first response is, "Yeah, but Scott, you don't have a lot of corporate experience. Do you really have the qualifications to tell someone that they should be like a corporation when you yourself don't have a lot of big corporate experience?" You know what? I was kind of crestfallen, and I was talking to my mentor. It was someone who I thoroughly appreciated his advice. So I took it, and I look back now and wonder, boy, how would things have been different if that would have been my book, in addition to the others that I've written? Here's the reason I bring that up. I think there's some qualifications that you need to think about wherever you are on the pathway of life about the advice that you receive. First off, the best advice is the advice that you ask for. I really don't consider too much the advice I receive that is not requested, because I request advice from the people that I respect. I request advice from the people who know what my goals are, who know what my future is. But if someone just over the transom offers advice, I don't view that with as much credibility. Just because someone gives you advice that you haven't requested doesn't mean that you have to consider it. Second thing is, if you have requested that advice, I think it's required that you take that advice seriously. You just don't have to take the advice. In other words, part of being an independent professional, part of being a person of value and worth, is that you get the chance to determine what's important to you. Now, I would have been better off to take the advice of Dennis Waitley than to listen at that point to my mentor. The point is simply this: sometimes the people who know you best are the ones who are most cautious for you. In other words, what they do is they want to make sure that they help you discover the pitfalls. But in fact, if you know all the pitfalls and discover all the pitfalls, you'd never get anything done. So, the 3 points I want to make to you about advice. Number one, unsolicited advice should be taken at a grain of salt. Secondly, advice that you request should be taken seriously, but not necessarily taken. And third, the important thing to remember about advice is that the people giving you advice who care the most for you are the ones who are most alert to pitfalls and don't want you to fail, but that is also what can prevent you from doing the very specific things that can help you succeed and create distinction. My phone is ringing. I'll talk to you soon. This is Scott. Thanks.